hail us both the troublemakers of the Caribbean. I don't know why. Marcia, welcome to the show, and briefly introduce yourself to the people.
Well, Ernesto, thank you so much for having me on your show. I feel so privileged. As you know, I reside in Barbados, Jamaican by birth, been living in Barbados for 26 years. I've been a filmmaker. I have produced, I have directed and written 8 feature films, believe it or not. I'm the artistic director for a dance school here in Barbados called Praise Academy of Dance, which has gotten itself into trouble with the government as well. I'm sure you heard about that. But I am primarily involved in the arts and media because I've been doing film. But it's only in the last 5 years that I have started this podcast, the Marcia Week Show, and started it from really small, only about 30 persons watching it, till now it is the thing that Bajans watch at night. Quite a number of Bajans. You have some who it's too much for them. But people watch it, because we on the show we educate, we motivate, we mobilize, we agitate. We say Emma, right? We educate, mobilize, motivate and agitate, and that's what we do on the Marcia Week Show. So that's just a little bit about me. Married to my husband Dave Weeks. He is the engine behind what I do, and I have 3 sons.
But your book, When We Lose Our Fair,
Yes.
They Lose Their Power. And one of the things I can really say to you is that today there's a lot of fear in society. The book is a classic. I think it's going to be a really good seller. It's a good read, especially for Gen Zers. I think they will love it. When we lose our fear, they lose their power. What is that all about, Marcia?
Yes, it is what it says. When we lose our fair, Ernesto,
Yes.
they will lose their power. Because right now, even within the Caribbean region, a lot of our leaders, for some reason, I don't know, if it is that we have the vestiges of colonialism that is still on our backs, but there is just this fear among Caribbean nationals. You look at Barbados, you look at citizens of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You look at Dominica, you look at Grenada. I don't know about St. Lucia, but you look at these Caribbean islands, and somehow these leaders seem to loom so large and so big, and people are afraid to speak truth to power. And I remember, there was a time when I was afraid as well. And you might, somebody listening to this, Ernest, might be wondering, what are they afraid of? Are they going to get shot? Are they going to get, it's a lot of it is economics. Would you agree? Yeah.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely.
A lot of it is economics. So what these leaders, they do with their power, right? They begin to marginalize you. All right. That's what one of the things that they do. They single you out, you're marginalized, you're victimized. If you open your mouth and say something to the powers that be, right? Something you don't agree with. Is it a case of injustice? If you believe that you are being unjust actions are being meted out to you or to your loved ones or to people that you know or to just strangers. But once you defy the status quo, once you defy the powers that be, we're not talking about breaking laws now, okay? Just defy. Then there is that victimization, the marginalization that happened in Barbados. They they had a bill where they were deciding that, okay, in this bill they would actually imprison us for up to 10 years. Because they're saying if you say something about anybody that makes them feel intimidated or you make them feel insulted, then you could go to jail. So we know usually what happens. Those that make the laws, they're going to use it. So that these are in our minds. This was a law that the government, the Motley government, was going to use so that she could stay in power forever. So she could do, what happened in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and what's happening in Dominica, because these rulers, some of them think they're monarchs and that they must remain in power forever. And so this book is to really encourage people all over the world, through the region, in Africa, all over the world, to stand up and speak boldly. Speak truth to power. Is there injustice in your country? Stand up. That's what Ernesto. Ernesto, you do that all the time. Sometimes I said, I wonder, this young man knows what could happen to him. But you rise up and you speak truth to power, and that's what it's saying. When, Ernesto, when, if we were to ever lose our fear, they will lose their power. That power that they have, the structures that they have set up around them will fall. If we could just lose our fear.
And I'm so happy that you said when you lose your fear or when you speak out against the system, it's not breaking the law you're talking about. And you mentioned, I'm so happy you said that, because a lot of activists do call for people to break out, free themselves from the system, but they do it in a manner which will cause more chaos than you don't really want. And I'm happy you said not breaking the law. So you do everything within the confines of the law.
Within the
And
confines of the
right.
law. But let
And
me say, there comes a time, there might be civil disobedience that is necessary, because if we remember, Ernesto, our ancestors, they had to employ civil disobedience so that we can even be here speaking. So there comes a time when that, but that should not be our the first the resort then. But there's a time, because it's civil disobedience is a form of protest,
yes,
but
yes, it
it's not.
absolutely
Yeah.
is. It absolutely is, but I'm happy that you had stressed on that first, and that is your first move, not to break the law, because people need to get that first before we move into the whole gamut of things.
Yeah.
But you are not only a social activist, you're a responsible social activist, and that's what I'm getting into people's head here, because sometimes when people want to move against the system, they want to have somebody, yes, that is vigorous, somebody that is forceful, but somebody knows when to play the cards. And we have to take it 1, 2, 3. We don't just escalate to 3. And I'm happy that you got that out before. So that is very important for me and people who are listening. You said fear is not just an emotion. It's a system, right? In this powerful manifesto, Weeks exposes how fear is used as a tool to dominate and divide, how people of conscience can dismantle those systems and reclaim their voice. And you were so correct when you said, if you go move against the system, what we have today, especially in the Caribbean, is moving on you economically. Not even jailing you per se, because they know that would be a waste of time, because 6 more will rise up just like you. They see the pattern, so they know what's happening. So they move on you economically, either they take away your job. But if you don't have a job, they will look for a way to squeeze you at the bank. Do you want a loan? Oh, she can't get a loan. He can't get a loan. They will look for the police to harass you on the street daily, even though you're not breaking the law in some way. They'll find some stupid thing to come up with to say that you're doing something that is against the law. And you are very correct. So, yes, and this is why I believe a lot of people do not want to get involved in activism these days, because the mere fact that my bread will be taken away and I may have 1 or 2 children at home who are now going to school, this is going to become a problem. And so they silence you, they push you into the ground, and they realize this is the button that we have to push, the economic button. But the problem I don't get, and I try to explain this for years to people, look, we are the ones that give these people the power.
Yes.
They do not have the power. And every 5 years, they come to you looking for a job. And they come to you as gentle Jesus, meek and mild, as the people would say. They're not big and bravado anymore. They're not bullying you anymore. No police is coming on to harass you anymore. Everybody's just at the foot of the cross, as the people say, equal. And they want a job. And so they behave nicely, come in your home, they eat from your kitchen. And whether your plate is dirty or not, they eat there. And then 2 days after, these people are passing laws to suppress you.
Correct.
And this is what we're trying to get to people. Listen, you're the one with the power in your hand. You're the one that's giving them this power. But the day that you break free of that stupid fear that you have, they will absolutely lose their power. And you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. But I want you to talk about this emotion that people have and the system. I mean, you mentioned it briefly before, when they use it as a tool to dominate and divide. Could you just go a little bit further as to how they really divide and dominate us?
Yes, well, how they divide and dominate us. Well, one of the biggest things that I know, I'm going to talk about myself. I remember 5 years ago, Ernesto, I could not have written this book. I had been living in Barbados, minding my own business, really, doing my films, and you whisper under your breath when something is wrong, etc., as we all do. But not nothing, I'm not involved in any political commentary or activism or nothing of the sort. I remember that I saw some trends and some things that were operating in the Motley administration that looked very dictatorial, and so within me, naturally in me, I just can't function under those kinds of settings. So what I did, I created a fake um, uh, Facebook page telling out all my business. And because I was scared that if I commented publicly, then I would be victimized, marginalized, ostracized, all of those different things. So I was so afraid of the system that I decided that I was going to create a fake Facebook page. That's how bad it was for me. So 5 years ago, I couldn't write this book. But what happened to me was just a change that happened from the inside out, Ernesto. And I remembered when it happened. It happened when um a test was given to the children in Barbados with, I think it's either 180 questions or 280 questions. And some of these questions were very intrusive and talking about gender and all of these kinds of things to children. The parents were not, they weren't even informed. The children were told that it was a computer test that they were doing. They weren't aware of what was happening. And I remember when that happened in Barbados, I don't know. I mean, something rose up inside of me, and I went and I did a one-man march, a one-man protest. Sorry, to fight against the system. It was a system. You ask about what is it about the system? It's a system that seeks to take away our rights. And in that particular case, we're now talking about the rights of the children. Because anybody listening, think about if somebody was to give you a test to do of over 200 questions. It turned out to have been not even a test, but it was what you call that, you know how you fill out these forms, these answer these questions. It's not a
Almost like a
poll.
survey,
A
almost like a
survey.
survey.
Thank you very much. A survey. Thank you, Ernesto. A survey. So they were asked to do a survey. When even as adults you get a survey to do and it's 5 questions, you're like, you can't wait for it to be finished. But to put children in a setting 2 to 3 hours answering questions that their parents know nothing about. They dressed and went to school and thought it was a test, because that is what was sent home to the parents, that they have a computer test. That's what was told to the children. And so that for me is a system seeking to take our rights, parental rights, children's rights. They are overreaching. So it's those kinds of systems. You ask, what is it that the system is doing? It's when we see the injustices that is being meted out. We look at St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Look at the mandate. Look at the vaccine mandate. Look, we look at how that was administered. It was illegal. And that was administered against the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we had not one person, not one prime minister from CARICOM who came to the rescue of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. There are teachers there who lost their jobs. Public servants to this day who've lost their homes, Ernesto, because of an illegal mandate that was put on the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And those are the systems that we need to speak out against. And when we see that kind of injustice, It is very, very imperative that push push past those systems, and push past the systems and reach out to touch the people that these systems are pushing pushing on, and rescue these people. And that's what I believe. When you read this book, you will see my journey of how I overcame fear, even fear of a lizard. I talk about being afraid of a lizard. I just told you I was afraid to post on Facebook. Me, who now comes on 4 times a week, you know, but who will not stop speaking, because I realize something. All that needs to happen, Ernesto, is that we stand up. That's all that needs to happen, is that we stand up. I saw in Barbados here with the same cybercrime bill. No, we marched about 17 times concerning this bill. Use the show, we use social media, and guess what? They now have the bill on hold. There's a pause on the bill. You see, and there's so many things. I mean, I see the strength of those in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So they use Facebook, they educate and so on. Several, I can't remember all the names right now, but Thusio, 7-Day Adventist, you, Ernesto, all of these people who've come out and are speaking up. We have in Trinidad, we have Umar Abdullah and his organization there, Naeem, and all of them. And all through the Caribbean, there are voices that are speaking up, voices that have decided, listen, I am not going to sit and nurse this emotion of fear, but to be able to rise up above it and begin to speak truth to power. And I say to everybody's watching, when we begin to do that, we're going to see how much that the effect of that is going to have on these structures of power. Because as you said, Ernesto, we put them there. We are the ones who put them there. And it's time we understand it and begin to realize that when we lose our fear, Caribbean, they will lose their power.
Absolutely. Couldn't say it any better. And so how do I have to support you here when you said that it appears that the governments in the region are becoming very authoritative?
Yes.
So almost like we are dismantling the democratic processes. You hardly have Freedom of Information Act in these islands. You can't get the information you want from government. Many of them would have gone to the parliament, passed these things, but they're not enacted into law. For instance,
Correct.
in the case of St. Vincent, since about 2004, that was one of the major things that the current government campaigned on when they got into office in 2001. Freedom of information. You can't hear anything. The government of Mitchell is hiding up everything. There was parliament. They said that parliament wasn't broadcast live. They had to go in and get a recorder and record something and run back to a station and put it on for people to know what's happening. And they said, look, we're going to deal with all of this. And yes, they did open the parliament live on air, but the Freedom of Information Act, which was one of the things that they campaigned on, transparency in government, up to today, they have not delivered on that. So since 2004, they went to the parliament, they discussed it, the parliament passed it, but up to now, it's not enacted into law. So you can't go and get information from any government department. For a journalist, it's still almost like you have to be squeezing blood from a nail. You have to be just digging, and you still can't get it. And when you get it wrong, maybe just a line, everybody looks to give you a lawsuit, for something. So these are the things that we're talking about. We have to lose our fear. We have to demand from these governments that they're open and transparent as they claim they want it to be. But people have to do this because these governments are not going to do it. And as you can see, the system where it's going now, it means that everybody is in one accord. And I'm talking about the governments of the world. So you're not going to get that if you don't push for it. You have to push for it. And that takes me all the way to your book, to Kenya, where you got a lot of inspiration. Tell me, why Kenya? What happened in Kenya? Why you got so much inspiration?
Well, Ernesto, I was doing my podcast really, and and in preparing for the podcast, I came across these protests that were happening last year. Today's actually 1 year that the protest started in Kenya, June 25th, 2024. And I saw all these young people on the streets, and I'm like, what's going on here? And they were protesting about a finance bill, a bill that would affect them economically. Now, I don't really see young people, protesting over economics. They would probably over rights, and injustice, police brutality, etc. But an economic bill, a finance bill, and they were talking about the price of bread and the price of rice and the price of wheat, the price of Pampers, and I started to scratch my head. So I reached to a friend of mine in the UK, and I said, do you know anything about this? And he said, yes, I have one of the young persons who is involved. I can, contact you with him, put you in contact with him. And that's what he did. And so I reached out to this young man and had him on my show. And so he came on and started to give us the update and the pictures and the real stories, not just what you're getting on YouTube. And all of us was just moved. I mean, my audience is primarily like 40s down to 90s, that age range, really. And they were just moved by them. And we started to get some of the other young people who are either in the US and funding it, because there were young people from Washington who were, they were funding the protest there. And we just kept focusing on it. I ended up going to Kenya, long story short, and I started writing this book, Ernesto, the day before I boarded the flight to Kenya. And I didn't even realize that that it was a book I was writing. I was just writing my thoughts. And I heard inside, this is a book, and it's a book for the nations. It's a book that is going to free people to because of what is coming. There's something that is about to hit us in terms, you kind of touched on it, Ernesto, in terms of the all the different systems that are, we saw it with COVID, and we see it now with the digital IDs, and we're seeing it with the surveillance, and all of that is coming. And I believe this book is prophetic. And so when I saw the young people from Kenya, I realized, Marcia, there's going to come the time we're going to have to rise up. We're going to have to rise up regardless of the age. Regardless of our age, whether we're Gen Zs or we are all the different names of millennials or baby boomers or whatever they call us all. There comes a time where there will come a time when we're going to have to rise up. We're going to have to speak truth to power. We're going to say, no, not in my body. You can't put that in my body. That you can't listen, to be able to stand up to powers and say, I don't want that in my body. I'm not going to eat that food that you're giving me that is made in a lab. I don't want that. I don't want that food. I don't want that injection. I don't want to wear what you want me to wear. I don't want to drive that kind of car. I want to be able to use whatever kind of I want to be able to grow my own food. That's standing up to systems. That's losing your fear. And so I see it. It's not just about our rights, Ernesto. It's not, but it's like even like the young people in Kenya. It's economics. When they're taxing us to death, we are walking around with all of these taxes, like what's happening in Barbados. We've never been taxed so much in our entire lives. When we have to be locking ourselves in our homes because we're afraid of the crime that is on the streets. The crime is taking over the streets in Barbados, and we cannot get anything sensible, no sensible, working, practical policies from those in authority when we're paying taxes and we're paying them lots of money, to serve. They're supposed to be serving us. And there no strategy, no policy, no legislation at all. And so when those things are happening, like the Kenyans, we need to be able to rise up and be able to speak truth to power. And so that's where the inspiration came from. A lot of them are in the streets today again, young people in Kenya, because the police shot and killed over 60 of them, Ernesto, last year. And today alone, two have been killed.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's terrible. But it goes to show how much of a connection that we do have with the African diaspora. But you mentioned something very strange there as well. You could not figure out why young people would be protesting over a financial bill. I mean, if you look at the Caribbean, you really would not see anybody on the streets protesting the bill that's gone to Parliament, which we call a financial bill for the budget. It's a financial bill.
Okay, yeah,
But you
yeah,
would never
okay.
see anybody on the street protesting that bill. Although in that bill, in many of these islands, are wrapped up so many things that affect our lives. But a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to watch any budget. I don't have no time with any parliament and any budget. That's nonsense. And I can't take that on right now. But it goes to show you when people's eyes are open to what is going on around them. And that is when you would find young people going and protesting against things like those. That's because their eyes are clearly open. The question now is, Marcia, how do we open the eyes of these young people in the Caribbean? Because clearly they would protest maybe because if a government block a cartel show, they probably would protest if a government says, oh, well, we'll have to ban TikTok for 2 months because it's causing
Yes.
too much problems. But outside of that, they really don't care anything, in terms of the what government do to affect their lives, basically. So the question for you is, and I mean, for all of us are social activists, and how do we get these people, these young people, to break that cycle of fear and to look at things from a different perspective and say, look, you know what? I will have to protest this. I'll have to go against this. I'll have to speak about this to get some change. How do we do that?
Yeah, well, I can talk about what I'm doing. As as you asked me the question, I said, but Marcia, what is it that you're doing? And one of the things that I do is I try to keep them close. And there's mentorship, there's calling and checking on them. They're sending them stuff via WhatsApp. This, for example, this Kenyan uprising that happened. I brought a couple of them to a restaurant, and we ate and we talked about it. We formed a WhatsApp group. Out of that WhatsApp group, I can tell you that we had one of them. No, we had two that went to Washington to represent Barbados, to represent the loyal opposition in Washington when the government wanted to bring the Motley cybercrime bill to shut us up. Those young people traveled. Two of them traveled, and they were so phenomenal. I mean, there was one of them. He was 18, and he was the star of the whole thing because he was able to again, without fear, speak truth to power right there in Washington. And Timon, his name is Timon Howard, and Timon is somebody that we worked with. We trained them. His speech, we worked with it online with him. We rough them up. We do everything we do. Because we recognize that, Ernesto, we don't want to just be doing this, and then when we're gone, nobody else is there to carry it on. And so it's important that we mentor, that we keep them close. The other night I had a couple of them on the show talking about the crime issue. Sometimes I try to get them to even, host a show. Some of their parents are worried. Yes, they're worried. They're scared for them. And so they will start with me, and then they disappear. But I stay there. I keep myself there for them, because I realize that it's so important that we are able to pass the baton on. And not just for the next generation. We want them to get activated now. We want them activated now. And a book like this, I would say to those who are watching, that a book like this it's a good way to start a conversation. They could purchase the book and share it with young people, because it's a book for everybody, and available on Amazon. And that's one way that they could do it, is to start conversation. I know a lot of them don't read, but even just the cover alone, I think will spark conversation with our young people. You can talk to them about the Kenya uprising and how young people are making a difference in Kenya, and that might spur them to go to YouTube and check that out. But it's to stay close, connect, try not to judge, try to work with them where they're at. Some of them, I have them working on my team, and they're doing, editing for me, so they have to listen to the stuff while they edit. So it's involving them in different ways, and to be patient with them. They have a whole lot to offer. Listen to them, be patient, get them involved. And with that, I want to just shout out to all of them. And when they see this, the Don Leacox, Shaquani Hunt, and Theory Gittins, those names that I can mention, Timon Howard, some of the names I can't mention because the parents, don't want them to get in any trouble. They work in the back. But these young people are very, very strong, and it's possible.
It's good to have them, and I agree with you around in terms of utilizing the things that they are into.
Yes.
So editing, they're into video production, they love the music, they love these things. So getting them involved in that is one way of getting them into the message and understanding, because as you said, they have to listen. So ultimately it will become their mission. You will move off the scene, and
Correct.
they will become your age group, and they will have to get involved in the mission. They won't have a choice then. It will force them into it whether they want to get involved or not. So at some point in time, so it's good. You're looking at good ways to get them involved. And the book is really a beautiful way to start as well. Like you said, a lot of them don't like to read, but I'm seeing a lot of young people now who really are getting into reading, and many of them will listen to the audiobooks and stuff like that.
Yes.
While they don't want to read, they will listen to the audiobook. So that's a good way as well. And I was getting to the point where I was going to ask you, where is this book available? Where is it available?
Yes. Right now, it's on Amazon. Okay, so which is universal. Everybody knows Amazon, so you can get the book on Amazon. And we are getting ready to have some physical books here in Barbados, where we'll do a book signing and those kind of things. The audio book is being worked on. Again, everything is going to be through Amazon. That you'll be able to be able to access the book.
Marcia Weeks, I love talking to you, but we've gone out of the time. We have to come back and do this another time, because this is, we have many things to talk outside of your book, which is going to be off the train. So we'll have to come back and do this another time. But I want to thank you so much for joining me today and for being on the program. And I know people are going to love this one. And like you said, your book, When We Lose Our Fear, They Lose Their Power. Where is it available again? Let them know.
When we lose our fair, Caribbean, they lose their power. Structures are going to fall when the people rise up. The voice of the people is the voice of God. And you can get this book on Amazon.com. Go on Amazon and share it, read it, form book clubs and read it. All proceeds are going towards the loyal opposition here in Barbados. Where we're going to use this continue to do more books and to more marches, and because, as I said, we take care of ourselves. We don't have anybody sending us any big organization. It's the people. So this book is to help to finance the movement, folks, and it also helps with some of the humanitarian causes that we have we're involved in as a loyal opposition. So guys, Amazon.com. Lose the fear, people. Lose the fear. We did it. A lot of us came together in COVID, and we did it. We did it across the region. Trinidad, Jamaica, Bahamas. We were joining together. We formed WhatsApp groups. You remember that? We can do it. We can do it politically. We can do it, Ernesto. We did it in COVID. We can do it again. When we lose our fear, they lose their power.
Absolutely, and I agree with you 100%. Marcia Weeks of the Marcia Weeks Show. I'm going to leave a link in the description of this video so that you can follow her channel and get all the necessary information you need. But Marcia, once again, thank you so much for coming on to the show, and I do hope that the whole Caribbean gets your book. I'm gonna promote it as much as I can.
Ernesto, thank you for having me. And I want to say you're my brother, and I look forward to your videos. And keep it going, keep it regional. Just keep what you're doing. You're strengthening us. When we see your videos, trust me, we pass it around and we say yes, yes, yes. And we know that's the same thing will happen with this book. It's like electricity because it's coming from one of us. And I want to say to you, Ernesto, thank you. This is a great opportunity for me, and I thank you so much for having me today.